Hi, I'm Bob Brenton. Today I'd like to talk about episode 27 of The Portal with Eric Weinstein. Eric had Daniel Schmachtenberger on to discuss avoiding apocalypses. Eric brought up the idea of a decision tree to avoiding apocalypse. He mentions several ideas on this decision tree, like leaving the planet, nuclear apocalypse, or limping along for 1,000 years, all of which seem to be unrealistic or not feasible in the short term. I think Eric was turning to Daniel for some extra nodes on this decision tree, a path out. I'm not sure Daniel provided that in this discussion. I think Eric and Daniel both recognize that the next 50 years of human existence is of the utmost importance to our long-term survival. We are surviving on luck at the moment. Our tools have outpaced our wisdom to use them, nuclear power being the prime example. Both are looking for this narrow road. How do we build our wisdom, and quickly, without it just being a new tech that gets folded back into the same problem? Daniel then brings up the idea of Game A versus Game B dynamics. In Game A, people cooperate so long as it is in their short-term best interest, but defect when the situation changes. An example of this type of behavior here in the age of COVID is the inability to get PPE from foreign countries where it is produced. They are happy to produce and sell them to us, cooperate, so long as everything is going well. But the moment there is trouble, our tribalistic instincts take over, trade breaks down, and trade partners become outgroup. This breakdown in Game A is so pronounced we are decoupling from China and turning away from globalism as a governing strategy. Game A is based on rivalrous dynamics and externalizing harm. Game A is inherently self-terminating, but in the meantime it is self-protecting. Game B is different. It is an always cooperative game, which necessarily makes it a self-sacrificial game. The motivational structures within Game B come from a concern for humanity above and beyond a concern for oneself. Applied to the PPE example, Game B would have us give PPE to those that need it, even if it meant a risk of sickness and death for ourselves. Game A hoards toilet paper, Game B gives you the last squares. There were two moments in the discussion that stuck out for me. The first is the offhand mention that something like a spiritual revival needs to happen. Getting people to stop playing Game A and start playing Game B seems to require a mindset similar to what the various spiritual traditions preach, even if the followers are poor at following. The second moment was in a similar vein, but looked at it from the perspective of the deathbed. When people are dying, their priorities get refocused. They aren't concerned with money, vacations, property, or power. None of those things help anymore. In those moments, we evaluate our life based on Game B dynamics. Who did we help, hurt, etc.? And what will be our lasting impact on the world for good or ill? How much of our time and energy and resources was used to fuel selfish Game A desires? The whole talk was excellent, and I highly recommend listening to these two great minds in conversation. I think they did an excellent job laying out the scope of the problem, and it is huge, but it was very light on potential solutions. I don't know if this is because of the lack of ideas or the magnitude of the issue, but it was very light on a concrete path out of our collective predicament. There is one topic that has been strangely missing from both this discussion and, from what I can tell, much of Eric's other work. Yet I believe it represents a whole new set of branches on the decision tree. That topic is psychedelics. I want to make it clear that from the outset I do not think psychedelics are a silver bullet. At the end of the day, Game A and Game B are the result of how us humans interface with the world, and what are our motivations, our traumas, and the conditioning we have received from our environment. These are the same things psychedelics help with the most, and why I think they need to be a central part of this conversation. I think that Eric's boss, Peter Thiel, would probably agree, given his investment in Compass Pathways. I also want to stress that the use of psychedelics is heavily affected by set and setting. For them to be relevant to this discussion, the set and setting needs to be therapeutic in nature. You can give them to everyone at Burning Man, and they won't cause the necessary shift in perspective from Game A to Game B. But give them to people on a spiritual quest or with a psychiatrist working on your trauma, and they become tools for transformation. So why psychedelics? Aren't they just a new medicine for depression, anxiety, and PTSD? What do they have to do with Game A versus Game B and adding branches to the decision tree? To understand the relevance of psychedelics, we must first understand the components of a psychedelic trip. Psychedelics put the partaker into a trance state. In this state, they become very aware of their self as consciousness instead of as body. The needs and desires of the body become unimportant, almost amusing in their insignificance. The vastness and yet intimate interconnectedness of all things becomes obvious. The quintessential observation is something like, oh, I remember I am one spiritual being having all of the human experiences, and those experiences will end, as all things do, but I'll keep on experiencing new things for eternity, like I always do. Also, I love this and every other physical form equally and infinitely. They are all me, after all. This is the seed of Game B dynamics. In Game B, you want self-sacrificial behavior. It is no wonder that people describe psychedelic trips in spiritual terms, or even as a death of sorts. They bring about the same shifts in mindset that Eric and Daniel observe as being necessary to avoid the issue of self-termination. One of the benefits of a psychedelic experience is that they do not couch the experience as exclusive to one particular tradition over another. Religion, as we commonly experience it, is a tribalistic Game A dynamic. Insofar as religions communicate with each other, there is always the undertone desire to convert the other person. Religion succeeds when they get a convert to their team in Game A dynamics. They fail when people apostate. If someone uses a religion and ends up becoming committed to Game B dynamics, it is seen as an accidental and even detrimental to the religion. This is especially true with the more fundamentalist perspectives in a religion. This isn't to say that the psychedelic experience is immune to Game A capture, but it is resistant. Given the less than optimal options on the decision tree, I think the widespread use of psychedelics is an idea whose time has come. Since their push underground in the 1970s, the ruling class has led us from one disaster to the next. They're not leading from a perspective of Game B, and as such, their edicts should be wisely ignored. I don't know if Eric or Daniel have used psychedelics. My read on Eric is that he has not, or if he has, there's a deeper experience yet waiting for him. He has an important voice in this space, and I would highly recommend he take the time and find an experienced, trustworthy shaman to lead him through this new territory. I think it would be highly beneficial to his work in mathematics, on geometric unity, and I think it would let him see some of these other possible branches leading us out of the predicament we have created for ourselves. Whatever the strategy we either consciously or unconsciously adopt as a society, I think psychedelics will be a central pillar. This is just extrapolating based on the radical changes of heart they can precipitate. Such a powerful tool cannot be overlooked. It is like the invention of the computer. Once the first one was created, they were destined to become ubiquitous. Their usefulness would defy any ban. That snowball has already started rolling for psychedelics. It is inevitable. There's a second inevitable idea that springs from the first. This idea is not fully formed, but again, I'm trying to sketch out a path from Game A to Game B. Filling that sketch will require a different skill set. The idea is some form of universal basic income. As we collectively begin to participate in Game B dynamics, there is no success so long as part of us is experiencing failure. If you are poor, downtrodden, and adrift in life, then I am poor, downtrodden, and adrift as a result. This is the nature of the selfless love. One of the milestones in our development as a culture is valuing all members just for existing. That means providing basic needs regardless of their perceived worth as humans or their ability to contribute, even to the worst in society. What I'm envisioning is some sort of cryptocurrency that has baked into it a monthly redistribution system. The particulars need minds brighter than my own, but the basic idea is that every month the top is skimmed off and distributed to everyone equally. The whole point of this redistribution is to stop the Pareto principle from holding the less fortunate hostage. To compensate the high producers, I suggest a giver leaderboard, which would track the amounts automatically redistributed as a method of tracking status. This changes the dynamics in the culture to one where status is given to those who are both in the most productive and the most giving, with the giving baked into the system. Currently, status is all about the display of wealth with trinkets and frivolities. We need systems that incentivize other behavior. When you are on your deathbed, having an extra watch or car or house is of no value compared to the lives your actions have assisted. There's a third idea that could be used in conjunction with the crypto UBI idea, or even implemented in our current economy. That idea is one of salary ratios. Let's say your company's lowest paid person makes $10 an hour. If you have a ratio of 20 to 1, then your highest paid person cannot make more than $200 an hour. If you want a raise at the top end, then equally proportionate raises must occur at the bottom end first. As an idea for our current system, businesses big and small could commit to a ratioed business and get tax breaks as a result, perhaps different breaks at different ratios. As an idea used in conjunction with crypto UBI, the ratios could determine the various cutoff places for percentage redistributed. The nice thing about this idea is that it can begin voluntarily with a small consortium of businesses viewing it as a good thing and publishing their adherence to those guidelines. It would be a powerful message if Jeff Bezos said, Amazon is going to a 20 to 1 ratio. Our lowest paid employees make $15 an hour, or about $31,000 a year. Our upper management makes no more than $600,000 a year. Now imagine not just Amazon, but many of the other large institutions that we value stepping up to that kind of commitment. You don't even need to legislate anything to get it done. Both the UBI idea and the ratio idea rest on the back of this truth. The amount of money as a proxy for resources available to any given person follows a pattern. From zero until my needs are met, more money is a good thing and well received. After that, more money increases leisure time, quality of life, up to another plateau. This second plateau is called FU money. At this point, further money does not gain you anything except more expensive versions of all the stuff you already have. The goal is to get us all above the first hump. All needs are met. You then need an incentive structure to participate in the economy. At the high end, they are fully invested in participating in the economy, but the rewards are no longer financial in nature. The incentives to excel at that high end can't be the same as at other stages in life. To put this another way, all these ideas are designed to push people up the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Many average people are stuck concerned about the lower two levels, especially in times of hardship like COVID. Many CEOs are stuck at the esteem level, with money as the marker for progress, completely unaware of the higher task of self-actualization. The UBI and ratios are designed to work on these four levels. The use of psychedelics permeates the entire hierarchy and shows us that we can approach life from the Game B paradigm without fear and regardless of whether other people join us in that venture. On top of all this, I think that Game B needs to figure out its metaphysics. It is clear that materialism and evolution, good as they are at explaining things, is not up to the challenge of switching from Game A to Game B. I have a metaphysics in mind I would like to put forward, but that will be a video for another day. Thank you all for your time and attention.